The Call of Duty series is a really mixed bag. From the acclaimed first game that managed to stand out in an already overcrowded market of World War II shooters, to silly storylines with American jingoism, Russophobia, weird racist undertones, and an insufferable online community. While the games are trash for the most part, there is a series in the COD machine that's actually good. That is, of course, the Black Ops series. And Black Ops is back with the stupidly titled Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. In preparation for this, I've gone through all the Black Ops games and want to share my thoughts on them. The first game in the series is of course Call of Duty World at War. World at War is really the black sheep of the COD family, as the World War II gravy train was slowing down. Infinity Ward put out 2007's Modern Warfare, basically starting the modern military shooter craze that continues to this day. Almost immediately, the World War II genre was declared old and irrelevant. Modern Warfare sold immensely. Naturally, it was bizarre to see that the following 2008 COD game would again be a World War II game. World at War was well received, and it also sold well, but it was unfortunately timed. Development began just after the release of Call of Duty 3, during the height of the World War II shooter. However, it was released in time for the funeral of the genre. Some players were disappointed and stuck with Modern Warfare. Meanwhile, others were of course happy to embrace World at War. It is after all an annual series, and many people just jumped to the newest version. World at War is a very different game to most of the Call of Duty series. Gone are the orchestral heroic scores, gone is the flag waving. The game is the darkest in tone out of the whole series. The game opens with torture and execution, and a bleak, overbearing atmosphere clings to you throughout the whole game, never letting up. World at War features graphic violence, and, in a first for the COD series, there's a dismemberment system in place, meaning limbs can be shot, torn, and blown off. Fire will continue to burn characters and their clothing until they're black. Your enemies will struggle through their last breath before bleeding out after you shot them. Helping to set the visceral scene is an incredible soundtrack. As I mentioned earlier, the typical heroic horn sections that make up a World War II soundtrack are mostly absent, and instead we get a hellish soundscape using electric guitar and other unconventional instrumentation for the genre. It adds a lot to the atmosphere, and the game was definitely made to be played at high volume levels. Sticking with audio, the voice acting is also excellent all round, but the star of the show is of course Gary Oldman, who plays Russian Sergeant Reznov. He brings life to the character in a way that nobody else could. He inspires the player at the right beats and shows a darker, nasty side when facing down his enemies. The Russian story is brilliantly told as you move from Stalingrad to Berlin, and ends with possibly the most emotionally powerful moment in the series, although I guess there really isn't much competition. Of course, the game has its issues. The main one being its AI. On anything higher than standard difficulty, the game is poorly balanced. Enemies will only target you, ignoring soldiers that could be mere feet away from them. They can blind fire from the hip while sprinting and still hit you with every single shot. And of course the infamous grenade usage. Enemies have an unlimited supply, and being behind cover for more than a few seconds will unleash a barrage in your direction, forcing you out of cover into their superhuman accuracy, where you'll be mowed down in seconds. It's artificial difficulty, and it can be very frustrating. At times the game feels like it's a firing squad simulator and you're the only recipient. Overall, the game has become an overlooked entry in the series. It's definitely worth revisiting, but I would suggest doing so on normal difficulty so that it doesn't outstay its welcome. So with all this in mind, I would score this one 8 out of 10 grenade icons on your screen. After the historical World at War, the next game in the series was of course Black Ops. This is where the series gets really interesting. Whereas World at War was historically accurate, Black Ops is a sequel that mixes real-world events with fiction, just like the Metal Gear series. Taking place during the 60s, the game sends us to a variety of locations and historical events. Engaging in CIA-backed Black Ops, we experience both the hot and cold conflicts of the era. An interesting point is how the game uses Rebirth Island, the real-life Soviet location, where forms of smallpox, anthrax, and even the bubonic plague were stored and developed. The game takes many real-life events, locations, and conspiracies, and uses them to build their own story. It's difficult to discuss the plot without spoilers, and although the game is old at this point, you never know who's watching, so I won't spoil anything. The series' dark atmosphere continues with the gruesome dismemberment and gore effects. Violence is dished out with zero regard. In a first for the series, you play as a character who can speak. No longer are you a floating set of hands with a name tag, you're an actual character. Alex Mason is voiced by actor Sam Worthington, and the high-profile casting continues once again with Gary Oldman returning as Reznov, and the incredible Ed Harris enters the series as Hudson. The atmospheric soundtrack returns with the same people responsible for World at War, Sean Murray and Treyarch's in-house Kevin Sherwood. The soundtrack never fails to set the perfect mood. When I think of the Black Ops series, I think of distorted guitars and haunting atmospheres. Sadly, at this point, the age of the game's engine was starting to show. The enemy AI still behaves the same way. We're led to believe that Spetsnaz soldiers train for years, only to sprint around corners into your gunfire. Increasing the difficulty introduces nothing but artificial difficulty, with enemies who can kill you with pinpoint accurate blind fire from the other side of the level because you are peeking through a tiny gap in a fence. The game also continues to commit a crime against gaming, and that's infinite spawning enemies. Enemies will continue to spawn and rush you with gunfire, grenades, suicidal no man's land crossing, until you reach an invisible trigger point in the level. So again, the game cheats itself where it can only be entertainingly enjoyed on standard difficulty. A great game, tons of atmosphere, and one of the very few Call of Duty games to put any effort into the story. I'll give it 7 strands of Ed Harris hair out of 10. This is the end of the golden age for Call of Duty. Further entries in the series would lean more towards futuristic and sci-fi scenarios. This would continue for many years, with the Black Ops series getting more and more out of touch with its original roots. Hopefully with Black Ops Cold War we've returned to said roots and can enjoy a decent campaign as well as a good online mode. In part 2 we'll be looking at Black Ops 2, 3 and 4. May God have mercy on us all.